Okay, members of the press, thanks for attending today's virtual press conference hosted by the TTFA for women's football. Going to be the focus, obviously, because of the fact that we had the draw for the CONCACAF Women's Championship, which took place yesterday. With us is women's head coach James Thomas. This is going to be his first opportunity to take questions from you, the members of the press. We're going to go straight into it. And first, I want to welcome you guys for being here, as well as Coach James Thomas, who has already been active with a local squad in preparations for the tournament, which starts in November. We're going to go straight into it by taking questions. So I'll ask if you can unmute, and also by a show of your virtual hand, ask your first question to Coach James Thomas.
Hi, Sean. Ryan here.
Yes, Ryan, go ahead.
All right, thanks a lot. Coach, can you just tell me initially your thoughts on the group for this CONCACAF tournament, your feelings on it?
Of course, Ryan, and hello, first of all. Yeah, it's the draw is something we've been building towards since I was appointed, and something that we were eagerly waiting for. So it's a pleasing draw. There was certainly a couple of teams in there that would have made the group slightly tougher, I suppose. But at the end of the day, international football is tough. To win a game in international football, you need to be fully on your game. So I'm happy with the draw. But to be honest, the thing I'm the happiest over is that the draw is now done, and we now have a focal point in terms of these four teams that we have to create the game plan to beat each accordingly, and to look to qualify for the next stages. So in terms of the individual teams, to me, it's an opponent, and whether they are ranked first in the world or whether they're ranked 141st in the world, it makes no difference to how we will approach the preparation for those games. I think it's important that the way the players understand this, and I've started speaking to the local group about this in training this morning, that the biggest game of your life as a footballer is the next game you're about to play, and rankings have no bearing on that. We prepare in exactly the same way. So like I said, I'm pleased the draw is done, but to me it's a set of opponents, and who those opponents wouldn't change the level of detail or the level of focus that we would work on. But yeah, I'm just really glad it's done, and we now have, I think there's a meeting later on this week where we find out which teams were playing at home, which teams were playing away. So it just makes it very real, and it definitely gives us that focal point. But for me, I just wanted the draw done. Whoever we were playing, I wanted to get that, those names from the opponents, and put those in the diary, so we can really, as a staff, start building the detail around our game plan and what that opposition team are like.
All right, Ryan, to answer that question. Next question up, Jelani Beckles from Newsday. Go ahead, Jelani.
Hi, thank you, Sean. Hi, Coach.
Hi.
Can you tell me the strength of your team? Looking at the composition of your team, what do you think the strength lies in TNT women's football heading into these qualifiers?
Yeah, well, I think as I said, when I haven't done many interviews since I was appointed, but I think in one of them that I spoke about, I think it was probably my first one, and it was about the blend of players we have within the group. We've got some younger players who are technically good. They're good players. We've got some older, more experienced players who again are technically good, and they've maybe had other experiences by playing overseas. We've got a very wide, broad spectrum of players in terms of ages, in terms of experiences and ability levels. But I was pleased because I did a lot of research before I even applied for the role, because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was applying for when I put the application in January, and I was excited by what I saw, which is why I applied. But I'll be honest, from being in now and working with the players on the field, from the locally based players, I'm more excited than I was, if I'm honest, because they've pleased me every week in terms of their abilities, in terms of their attitude has been first class. I've been really, really impressed with their attitudes and how they've conducted themselves as potential national team players. And obviously we've then got the overseas players that I've been in close contact with, and again we've done additional research into those, and we're watching them when they're playing on a fairly regular basis. And the college-based players we have in the US, their seasons are starting now, so we're going to be able to watch those playing as well, which is great. So probably the short answer to the question is, I was excited when I took the role in April, but I'm probably even more excited right now in terms of, the ability levels that we have from a technical perspective. I know we've got some fitness capacity work that we need to improve on, but that's improving every week. But, I think when these players are up to speed fully physically, I think we've got so much pace and power within the group as well, which again, just adds another dimension to how we look to play against certain opponents. So it's very pleasing.
Okay,
All right, we give an opportunity to Extra Time TV to ask the next question.
Okay, hi, you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, we're hearing.
Okay, hey James, so as preparations are taking place, we know a lot of the obstacles are obviously COVID-19. You can't work like you normally would. You've indicated that you've been training with a local squad, but we know with a national pool, it's not just a small group of players. Obviously you'll be looking both locally and internationally. How is that process going with in terms of creating a pool to prepare for this tournament?
Yeah, very, very good, very good. We're at the moment looking at, I think we have 49 players in our extended player list, which is great because that's almost another squad. It's an extra. We're looking at taking a squad of 24 players to a tournament. We've almost got double that, which is great. And they are players that are all under close consideration for for the national team for camps. We monitor, as I said, we're monitoring those, we're dealing with those. A lot of the ones that are overseas, they're in contact in terms of physical performance programs that we're supporting them with if they need it, if they're not in an environment where they're getting exactly what they need. So it's very exciting. Since we've been in place, we've identified some extra players who have never been capped by Trinidad and Tobago before, and they're playing at good levels. They have very good pedigrees. And they're young, exciting players that I think will certainly impact the national team. So what that does really then is just increase the level of competition. So the local players we have, the college-based players, the semi-professionals, the professional players around the world that we have, we're really increasing that competitiveness within the player pool, which is fantastic because that only means we put the best squad together every time we have a camp. And players have to fight to get in the squad, but then most importantly, they have to fight to stay in the squad, which is a good place to be in. So yeah, I'm very excited and happy with how that's progressed so far. It's not something we're going to stop on. I'm going to keep looking for extra players because again, if we can find added quality, we're always going to look to add that because that's how you move forward as a team.
Okay. All right. We have a question from Roxanne Gialdo from I-95.5. James, she's asking, how are your preparations looking ahead of the start of the competition in November in relation to friendly internationals? Yeah, good. We're working on a two-camp plan. So the first camp will happen in September. There's various options that I'm considering at the moment, and I didn't want to make a decision on the route we go with that until the draw was done yesterday, because that may shape how we approach the September camp slightly. But then October we have a double-headed fixture camp, which will happen, and details of that will be announced accordingly, in the near future. But I believe that's already agreed, and we're in a good place as far as that's concerned. So yeah, it's good. Preparation time has been something that I felt was very important. One of the first tasks I had was to speak to the players who'd been in and around this environment for a number of years. And the one thing they've all said was, we've never been given a fair chance in terms of preparation. It's always been, we meet up a day or so before, and then we go to a tournament and we're expected to do well. And so that was the one thing that I really wanted to change. And, I'm very thankful that I've been given the support to be able to do that and to make sure that we prepare this team professionally and we prepare this team correctly. So yeah, going into November's qualifiers with, 2 camps under our belts, plus the local training program that's going on, plus the internationally based players who are playing every week within their respective leagues, it puts us in a very good place. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that prep is going. Every week we're ramping up the levels for the players in the local training program, and it's tough for them physically, but they're all buying into it. And players are working really hard, but they're leaving the field at the end of the session, they've got smiles on their faces still, as much as
they may be suffering a little bit in terms of the amount of work we're putting them through. So we're in a very good place, and I'm really, really happy. And like I said, everything we're doing is building towards November. Our priority date is November. So everything we do every day is about that date, and to make sure we hit the ground running in terms of these first qualifiers.
All right, thanks, James. Further questions for head coach. For those of you, you can raise your virtual hands. If you're having issues with that option, you can send your questions in the chat. Next question for James. Jelani, you have another question?
Yeah, I do, Sean. I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, James. Hi, James.
Hi.
Jelani again from the Newsday.
Hi, Jelani.
James, TNT football and TNT hasn't had the best of times in last year or two, with the unfortunately men's team being knocked out of the first round of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. How important is it for the TNT women's team to bring, some more pride back to TNT football and give fans something to smile about going forward?
Absolutely vital. It's success is so important, and it's something that, again, as I said, every day we're fighting for to make sure that happens. The players really want it, and so do the staff and everybody around that are supporting us. I think it's absolutely vital to put a smile on the faces of the fans, because, as you said, there's been kind of a rough time recently, and I think it's important that we now are the ones that need to carry that burden, because but it's a good burden to have, because it gives us hopefully some support. It would be fantastic if we're at the point sometime soon, depending upon regulations and things, that we can play in front of our fans, because I think that's something that would be fantastic. I don't know how close we are to that, but just to give the fans something to be proud of in terms of Trinidad and Tobago football is a responsibility that I personally take very, very seriously. And I think there's also a bigger part of this as well, is the women's team, I think, previously have not maybe been supported infrastructure wise as perhaps they should have been, or they've not been given the right opportunities to be able to present themselves in a way that's fair for them. So we're very happy that we have changed that. As I said, preparation, we're now able to prepare for tournaments, which, a lot of players have said that's been the thing that they've fallen down because of previously. So we've changed those things. So I think overall there is a responsibility for us to look at the Trinidad and Tobago football. But I think if we kind of look even a little bit more focused in on the women's football within Trinidad and Tobago, I think it's vitally important that these women that we're working with, and they're an incredible group, that they are so passionate about representing this country, and that's something that we really now just need to provide them with a platform that they feel that they are given the best chance possible to put a smile on everybody's face. So yeah, I think it's a huge responsibility that we carry every day, and every decision I make and everything that I do is about that, is about making this team as successful as we possibly can.
All right, thank you, James. Next question for Coach. Ryan, you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Sean. I just also wanted to ask you, Coach, much has been said about the selection of your assistant coach. How important is it that coaches like yourself get the opportunity to select your deputy and who you would like to work with?
It's very important that I have an input into that decision-making process. It wasn't something that I made that decision alone, because I didn't. There was a panel that conducted the interviews, but I think it was the biggest target we had when we went into that entire process was we want somebody that could really help support this group of female players. We really needed to give them as much support and guidance and help, because I felt we need to catch up. We do need to catch up, because I think the women's program in Trinidad and Tobago has been left behind a little bit. And that was really, really important to us. And, the interviews were tough. They were long, they were grueling, and there was a lot of detail that we went into. And, so I had an input into my thoughts on it, but it was a panel decision on who we felt the right candidates were. And then obviously those appointments were made. But yeah, it is very important that we have players we have coaches and support staff that are able to add to the environment. And that was key for us.
Okay, thanks a lot, James. Further questions for head coach James Thomas? Any more questions for James? Okay, James, maybe you can touch on us by expanding a little more in terms of what you sense from the players in terms of their enthusiasm to show up for training, especially during the current pandemic. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, as I said, their attitude has been first class, from day one. I think it was a little bit of the unknown for them. In the first session, I wasn't really sure what to expect from them. They weren't really probably sure what to expect from me, but they've surprised me every day, and they've impressed me every day in terms of how hard they work. And, we're really putting them through their paces. We're challenging them. They're doing at the moment, they're training 4 times a week. They have 2 of those sessions are purely fitness-based work because of where we are physically is nowhere near where we need to be as international footballers. So they're working very, very hard twice a week on football-specific fitness work, which we felt from the initial fitness assessments that we did, we needed to do that right now. And so that's something that we're going to operate in the short term to really get those players up to speed. And then twice a week, on a Saturday and a Sunday, with them working with the players in more football-based practices, which from me as a coach are obviously very important as well. So it's been hard, it's challenging. The players are finding it tough, but at the same time, they're finding it what they need. It's what they need. And, the feedback that I'm getting when I'm speaking to players is this is exactly what we need to try and catch up that time, because there's been a void. These players, I don't think, have played as a national team for 2 years, maybe even slightly longer than that, obviously because of COVID and because of the, the various other reasons that, that exist. But we're almost catching up. And the fitness was the one thing that's really been neglected. But the players turn up, they've got smiles on their faces. We really, really test them to, every day we're testing them to the limits, and they're walking off the field and they're still smiling. So maybe I need to test them a little bit harder. I don't know. But no, it's great. The atmosphere is fantastic. I think you'd have seen that yesterday, Sean, when you were at the session as well, in terms of the energy. The energy is very, very good. The players feel comfortable, they feel safe, they feel respected by the staff and by the by the association, which is very important. And but they're working hard, and it's a very competitive atmosphere, but it's a very team driven atmosphere as well. And we're in a good place. But as I say to them all the time, and they're probably sick of me saying this, but the standard we have today will no longer be good enough tomorrow. We have to, every time we set foot on the field, whether it's for a fitness-based session or whether it's for a football-based session, we have to be better than we were the last time we set foot on that field. And that's something that we will keep driving. But what we're starting to see now, which is really pleasing considering how early it is with this local training group, is they are starting to govern that themselves, and they are starting to put expectations on themselves and each other within the group that, come on, we need to up things a little bit. So they are starting to push the standards as well, which is a great place to be in such a short space of time. But like I said, we're never going to settle. We're never going to be happy with the standard, because we can always improve as individuals. We can always improve as a coach. I always need to improve, and I always need to get better. And I'm seeing that attitude and that mentality happening within the playing group as well. And that's really, really pleasing to see.
It's good to hear. That's encouraging words, James. There's another question from Roxanne Gialdo on that note that you were touching on. She's asking, how have you been able to hold up in terms of adjusting to the new culture and to the new conditions here in Trinidad, being away from home and family?
It's very hot. The great. I'm getting on great. Obviously it's a big step to make, to leave kind of friends and family the other side of the world to take on an adventure like this. But it's been great. Everybody that I've been dealing with have been, and I've started to get to know, have been so welcoming, so friendly. And so I'm loving every minute of it. I'm loving every minute of it. The playing group have to take a lot of credit for this as well, because they're a pleasure to work with. They really are. I'm adjusting okay. Like I said, the sun occasionally I'm finding a little bit of a challenge, but we certainly don't get weather like this in Wales. So that might take a while for me to get used to. But other than that, it's been fantastic.
All right, James. There's one other thing I would like to touch on. The way the qualifiers are now formatted in terms of how CONCACAF has set it up. It's going to be the first time the World Cup qualifiers for women are going to be played in this format, which is a home and away, at least for the prelims. Before, in the past, the teams would have flown into one destination and played there. Have you discussed this with your players, and how do you see this in terms of having to travel, play away and play home, 2 games away, 2 games at home?
I think it's a great format. If I'm honest, I really like it. It's probably closer to the format that I'm used to in terms of how we would play in Europe, in European-based competitions. So but I think the developments and the announcement that CONCACAF have made this past few days have been absolutely incredible for the region. And it's really exciting to be a part of, and to be involved in this from the start is very, very exciting. As far as the players are concerned, players are adaptable, and I think that's, as a coach, what we have to do every day when we're with players is make them as adaptable as possible, because things change, and as players they need to be able to deal with change that might get dropped on you at the last minute. So it's almost being able to expect the unexpected, and I think players will adapt. Players will be fine. They'll be used to a certain format, but they will very quickly become accustomed to it. And one of the things we'll try and do is in the interim camps before we get to November, is we will base our schedules very closely around what the schedules in November are going to look like. It may be minus the travel element in the middle of the week, but we will certainly try and create our training structure and our timetable for our sessions and how we load the sessions physically. It will replicate what we're going to do in November. So by the time the players get to November, I think they will understand how we work, the demands on them physically, the days where we have our high loading days and the days where we have our lower loading days. And that, by the time they get to November, they will be comfortable with. Obviously the only thing we'll need to add in then is there will be a flight somewhere in there as well. So that's probably the final thing that we would add in, but we'll adapt to that in November, and that's not a problem. But no, it's such an exciting development for women's football in this region.
All right, thank you, James. There's an opportunity for a closing question from anyone. By a show of hands, or you can send your questions in the chat. Okay, James, so it seems that you've covered everything. They all seem satisfied, so I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being here with us. Members of the press, also thank you for showing up in this virtual press conference. We're going to send you copies of digital copy of this press conference, possibly within 15 minutes or so, and also some footage from yesterday's training session that hopefully will be useful for you in your various news packages. All right, James, thank you very much, and everybody else have a safe Sunday, and looking forward to the start of the new week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.